My wife and I have 3 kids, and we love them. They're wonderful. They're as good as kids can get, but they are kids, which means that from time to time they tattle on each other, which is possibly my least favorite social exchange in all of human interaction. He's touching me. He's touching me. All right, all of you stop all the things you're doing. He's touching me. Get along. Don't bother your sister. Dad, he's crossing the line. This is an opportunity to develop skills you need to function as adults. Dad, he crossed the line. His finger is over the line. It's back now. It's back. It's back over the line. His finger's back over the line. Dad, I don't care. Dad, I don't care. Dad, break the pencil in half. Dad. Dad. Here's the thing. When they tell me stuff that really is a problem, I'm super grateful because I love them and I want their lives to be good and I love teaching them how to solve their problems. But there are times when I feel like what they're doing is more about getting someone else in trouble than it is about solving a problem. And when it's like that, I cannot bring myself to care, and I am ruthlessly dismissive. If you hate tattling as much as I do, you're going to love this. Acts 18, 12 through 17. Here we go. While Gallio was proconsul of Achaia, the Jews made a united attack on Paul and brought him into court. This man, they charged, is persuading the people to worship God in ways contrary to the law. Right off the bat, we have a tension in this passage because the previous passage has Jesus making a promise to Paul, supernaturally saying, I got people in this town and nobody's going to harm you. But now it looks like we're seeing the same pattern that's happened with Paul all over the place, repeating again. He's getting hauled before an authority figure and people want to have him beaten or flogged or imprisoned or stoned or whatever it might be this time around. So this looks like it's setting up to end badly, but at this point, all that's happened is Paul has been brought before an important public official to talk about Jesus, which is exactly what he's in Corinth to do anyway. Their charge against Paul is that he's persuading people to worship God in ways that are contrary to the law. Sounds like a complete non-issue to you and me because we live in a time where you can think whatever you want and worship however you want. That was not the case in the first century, and the original audience would have been on high alert when this charge was brought up because they would have seen, oh, here's what the Jewish people are doing. The Jewish people are trying to say Christianity is not on the list of state-sanctioned religions that are deemed no threat to the regime. See, if you were on that list, you had no problem. You could do whatever you want. But if you weren't on that list, you could suffer pretty serious consequences. Well, Christianity had been a thing that was part of Judaism, and Christians indeed had been trying to argue the Jesus thing is the completion of the Judaism thing. It's all one. This is just where we need to go next. And the Jews, of course, were arguing, nope, we reject Jesus, not the Messiah. We're still waiting on our Messiah. Well, as a result of this confusion, the Romans had not really yet made a distinction between Jews and Christians. So Christians were kind of hiding under the protective umbrella of Judaism, and the Jews are sick of it, and they're trying to break this thing off right here. But they raise a good question. Are Christianity and Judaism different? Well, yeah. I mean, by this point they were. I don't think they were supposed to be, but that's how it worked out. There's a fissure between these two groups. And so there is a lot on the line, because if Gallio hears a few religious details and is able to say, I'm not saying who's right or wrong, but those are definitely different, that's bad news for Christianity. We face similar questions today. There's kind of a push right now to say, well, I think Mormonism and Christianity, for example, are the same thing. To which I would say, look, I'm not interested in making a video right now about who's right and who's wrong, but come on, those aren't the same thing. There are huge, glaring differences between those two religions, and it's okay to acknowledge that. Here's how it works out. Just as Paul was about to speak, Gallio said to the Jews, if you Jews were making a complaint about some misdemeanor or serious crime, it would be reasonable for me to listen to you. But since it involves questions about your words and names and your own law, settle the matter yourselves. I won't be a judge of such things. So he had them ejected from the court. Please indulge my paraphrase of the previous passage. Is anybody bleeding? Is anybody dead? No. Then I need you to work it out. Go to your rooms. How many times have we seen Paul get up in front of an angry mob and give an impassioned speech about Jesus to try and defend himself, and then he usually gets interrupted with rocks or flogging or something. This time, he doesn't get interrupted by violence. He gets interrupted by the guy who is overseeing the proceedings saying, no, just don't, dude, I don't even need it. We're done here. This is stupid, and I don't care about your argument. Everyone go home. Okay, so of course, that's a big win for Paul because he's not getting flogged today. But more important is that this snap decision from Gallio buys Christianity 10 more years of protection under the umbrella of Judaism. This is a good decision and a good policy, and interestingly, when the policy changes about a decade later under the leadership of the Emperor Nero, it costs both Gallio and Paul their lives. So that addresses the implications of the decision, but it leaves the question outstanding: why did Gallio make that decision? Well, let's talk about him a little bit. This guy's name was actually Lucius Junius Gallio Annianus. He has a big, important, fancy Roman name, and he's a part of a big, important, fancy Roman family. His dad was the very famous Seneca the orator, and his brother is the very famous Seneca the philosopher, both of whom were connected in the courts of emperors, and his brother Seneca the philosopher would actually be the right-hand man to Nero until old neckbeard went crazy and started murdering people, including Seneca. Gallio was a guy on the move. Corinth was not his final destination. It was a stopover point for probably about 1 year, 51 AD. And we know that because he was good friends with the Emperor Claudius. There's an inscription up the road in Delphi that talks about that and talks about Gallio's good character. His brother Seneca also wrote at length about Gallio's quality of character. He was just a beloved, likable, good dude. And that stands in stark contrast to all of these other Roman leaders at the time who did not understand that these violent delights have violent ends. So I don't think Gallio made this decision because he was politically lazy or didn't care about the people of Corinth. I think he made the decision because he knew that religious fanaticism and people willing to shed blood in the name of their religious preferences is a stupid thing. And that if they want to do it, that blood should be on their own heads, and that the government should have no part. I like Gallio's political philosophy because, at least from what I see here, he's a guy who said, nope, no religion gets to use my state's monopoly on violence on their behalf to prop up their ideas. We're not touching it. So Gallio had them all cleared from the court. Then they all turned on Sosthenes, the synagogue ruler, and beat him in front of the court. But Gallio showed no concern whatsoever. So wait, to be clear, the Jews grabbed the leader of the synagogue who would be part of their team and just beat him. There will be blood, I guess. They were in the mood to beat somebody. If we can't beat Paul and the government's not going to beat somebody on our behalf, we'll beat you. Gallio showed no concern whatsoever, but I don't think this is a critique of his character by Luke, the author. I think it's a compliment. Gallio knew y'all were going to do stupid stuff and beat somebody anyway. This way, you're doing it on your own, and I'm just going to let you knock yourselves out, literally, while I go over here and eat a giant smoked turkey leg while drinking gallons of grog from this mug surrounded by serving wenches. So Paul lives to fight another day. Jesus keeps his promise about Paul being protected in Corinth, and Christianity gets to hang out under the protective umbrella of Judaism for another 10 years. And on top of that, we get to see some big mean bullies get knocked on their butts by Gallio and have a good laugh about the whole thing. All in all, I'd say that's a win-win-win-win. Religion and violence don't go well together, and Christianity especially was never intended to mingle with violence. Christianity historically has always been at its best when it wields no secular power, and has always been at its worst when it has the authority of government or the ability to have government do violence on its behalf. Throughout the New Testament, it's only the bad guys who use violence to prop up their religious ideas. And it's only the bad guys who go to the government to have them use violence on their behalf to prop up their religious ideas. Christians aren't supposed to do it. It's never advocated for. And the one time somebody broke away from that expectation and used violence on behalf of Jesus, that was Peter in the Garden of Gethsemane, what happened? Jesus said, knock it off! And then he fixed the damage that was done by Peter. Paraphrase is mine. There's nothing in the founding document of Christianity that indicates that violence is supposed to be a part of our deal. And there's everything in our founding document to indicate that if you're using violence to prop up your religion, you're probably on team bad guy. But here's the thing. When you talk with people on the internet about religion and the downside of it, you'll often hear something like this. Well, for the last several thousand years, religion's been responsible for so much violence. And I would say to that person, you are half right. Half right because religions aren't governments. They can't function unto themselves, and they're not allowed to do violence without the blessing of the other half of the equation, which is the government. Think about it, even here. The Jews wanted to do violence, but they had to go and ask the government for permission to do violence or for the government to do violence on their behalf. Their idea wasn't good enough to just win on its own merits, so they needed somebody to use swords to prop it up. It's this unnatural, unholy relationship where all of the gross things in history that you're picturing come from. Unto ourselves, we don't have the right to engage in violence, and we get smacked down by society if we do. But if we can legitimize it with government, then all of a sudden it becomes, I guess, okay, and horrible things then happen in the name of religion coupled with advancing the power of the state. If we make the mistake of asking the government to use violence to prop up our own religious preferences, we need to take some cues from history and understand that that will boomerang on us. At some point, a different set of religious preferences are going to be in charge, and at that point, the Pandora's box is open, and now that our ideas are out of vogue, we're the ones who are going to suffer. So the better play, all Bible, all everything aside, the better play, just reasonably, is a healthy degree of political grace. We take violence and force off the table when it comes to religious discourse. We put persuasion on the table, and we argue our stuff out. We think, we disagree, whatever, but we know we're not going to make other people do stuff or hurt other people for coming to the wrong conclusions. If we do that, I think that is the environment most conducive to the growth of Christianity and the gospel, because I think this is true, and I don't think it needs force to prop it up. And if we just put this out there and let it be true, backed by love and by grace, it will take care of its own business without anyone ever having to lift a finger in violence, or anyone having to engage in the same nonsense that the bad guys in this passage were engaging in. Hey, if you like what we're doing with the 10-Minute Bible Hour, make sure to support our sponsor. This episode was brought to you by me, because sponsors are for posers. So if you want to support me, you can watch more of my videos, maybe share it with a friend, possibly subscribe. I don't know, maybe send me super flattering compliments in the comment section. They're like, wow, your videos are so good. No, I like the Bible. Thank you for being so cool. Please tell me more about the Bible. Also, you are very handsome.